When I married Jerry, I was lucky to inherit some property from my grandparents. They suggested I use it to secure our future but advised me to keep it a secret, even from Jerry. They thought it was wise to have some income that only I knew about, ensuring I would always be financially secure. Unfortunately, Jerry often crosses boundaries with possessions and finances. For example, he has tried to give away gifts from my parents to his parents to make himself look good. This upset me, especially when he reacted badly when confronted. Recently, a big issue arose. I discovered that $22,000 had been taken from an account meant for our living expenses. This account was supposed to support the income Jerry contributed. I didn't remember making such a large withdrawal, so I concluded that Jerry must have taken the money. When I asked him about it, he admitted he had lent the money to his mother, Kayla, without my knowledge. This was shocking because it showed a lack of communication and respect for our financial decisions. It made me rethink our relationship. If our marriage can't be built on mutual respect and honesty, especially about finances, we might need to consider our future together. The idea that one spouse can take what the other has without discussing it isn't sustainable. If this approach remains, we might have to consider separating. It's okay, I suppose. The money was mine that I earned. We have some savings, so the loss shouldn't be too bad. If Kayla was in trouble, I understand the need to help, but a simple conversation with me would have been appreciated. The account is ours, after all. If Jerry had taken the money from a personal account he set up before we married, I would have minded, but not as much. Taking such a large amount from our shared account without discussion felt like a breach of trust. When I expressed my disappointment, Jerry was dismissive. He frowned, irritated, and reluctantly promised to inform me next time before taking such actions. He then quickly excused himself to the bathroom. This left me feeling uneasy. It wasn't like the early days of our marriage when Jerry would listen sincerely and value my input. Is this what change looks like in a marriage? A few days later, I went to my in-laws' home to deliver a package mistakenly sent to our address. My mother-in-law, Amy, greeted me warmly and invited me in for tea. I accepted, even though I just wanted to leave the package. While there, I noticed several luxurious items around their house: expensive cosmetics, stylish clothing, and various health products. Amy casually mentioned that these were gifts from Jerry. I realized that the $22,000 had been spent extravagantly. The casual way this spending was treated made me question not only our financial partnership, but also the respect and communication in our marriage. When I found out that Jerry had lent the money to his mother because she was in need, I tried to understand. However, seeing that the funds were spent on luxury items didn't sit well with me. As I sat quietly sipping my tea, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. My in-laws' smiles faded, and they looked at me with a mix of fear and accusation. "My son is such a wonderful, generous boy, always buying gifts for me," my mother-in-law started, her tone turning confrontational. "But what about you? As his wife, are you taking good care of my wonderful son? There seems to be some trouble. I hear he mentioned getting a lot of blame from you for using the money to help me." It became clear that Jerry had made himself look like a victim to his parents, a good son just helping his mother. This revelation exhausted my patience with my in-laws and with Jerry. I had never expected such a lack of support and understanding in my marriage, making me seriously consider divorce. I started imagining a future where, after a divorce, I would move back to my parents' home, a two-story house over 32 years old, designed before my brother was born. It used to house our family of 5 comfortably, but now stood largely empty and was becoming impractical for my aging parents, who struggled with mobility. The house had some modifications, like handrails, but its spacious layout was hard for them to navigate. A one-story house would be much better for them. With my financial security from the inherited property, I could rebuild their home to be more comfortable and accessible. Filled with a mix of resolve and relief, I called my parents to discuss my plans for a divorce and the idea of rebuilding their house. Surprisingly, my parents weren't shocked by the news. Their reaction only solidified my decision, as it seemed they too understood the need for a change, supporting my desire to start anew and build a better environment for our family. The news of rebuilding their home brought genuine joy to my parents. Over the phone, I could sense their happiness as they thanked me. "I'm glad that you're planning to rebuild it for us. Thank you," they said. They reassured me that even if they couldn't live there for long, it wouldn't be a problem, as I could eventually take over the house since it was funded by my income. "Well then, I'll start preparing and planning it bit by bit," I replied, encouraged by their support. "Take it easy, just don't overdo it," they advised, their words lifting my spirits instantly. As I began organizing the rebuild of my parents' house, I awaited a response from the construction company. However, before any progress was made, Jerry confronted me aggressively. "How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me anything about it?" he accused as we sat across from each other at the living room table. He banged his fist on the table, his voice rising without any regard for my feelings. "Well, my parents will live in the new house. I firmly stated that it was impossible because the house was meant for my parents. Jerry roared, insisting that since the house was built with what he thought was our shared property, his parents had a right to live in it too. Are you planning to cram 5 people into that little one-story house? Just give me the house then, Jerry demanded, hitting the table louder. Worried about his reaction if he discovered the passive income I had kept secret, I decided it was time to reveal the whole truth. To tell you the truth, I have passive income, I confessed. I've been saving from the real estate gifted to me by my grandparents. I've paid for the rebuild with that passive income, so I didn't take a penny out of our common property. Feeling guilty for breaking a promise to my grandparents to keep this a secret, I watched as Jerry's reaction grew even more intense. He shook with anger and pounded the table harder. What a bad wife you are, hiding the fact that you have an income. You play around with my money and protect your own by keeping secrets. His words stung, but they also clarified the deep issues in our marriage, issues of trust, respect, and shared goals, all of which seemed increasingly insurmountable. Seeing Jerry's face flush with rage, I suddenly grasped why my grandparents had advised me to keep my passive income a secret. Perhaps they had seen something in Jerry that I hadn't recognized until now. I'll take the house as a lemony. Besides, any house you build while we're married is mine too. I am the head of the family, and if you disobey me, I will divorce you, he declared arrogantly. I was overwhelmed with dismay. How had I spent so many years with a man who could so easily disregard my feelings and contributions? Initially, I had planned to use the passive income for our future, especially if Jerry's earnings were insufficient or if I was unable to work due to injury or illness. It was meant to be a safety net to support both of us, something I intended to share with him when the time was right. But now I no longer wished to use that money on him. Fed up, I stood up and left the house, needing space from the stifling atmosphere. I spent the night at a business hotel to clear my head and plan my next steps. Upon returning home the next morning, Jerry was waiting with a sly, unsettling smile. He approached me smirking and presented a sheet of paper he had been hiding. It was a set of divorce papers already filled out. You're lying about your passive income, aren't you? You lied about it to hide that you were taking money from our shared property, didn't you? He accused. His accusations were baseless and repetitive. Even though I was telling the truth and actually had passive income, he refused to believe me. It's the truth. I have passive income, I insisted, but he wouldn't listen. Jerry's inability to trust and respect me was the last straw, making it clear that this marriage couldn't provide the support or partnership I needed. The next steps of legally separating our lives seemed unavoidable. Jerry shoved the divorce papers into my hand with a smirk and said, "You'll let me know when we can move in, okay?" He then patted me on the shoulder, walked out the door humming, and mentioned he was going out for a drink. At that moment, I saw who Jerry really was. Throughout our marriage, he had hidden his contempt for me, never truly valuing my feelings or perspectives. This realization hurt, but also set me free. I didn't waste any time. I packed up my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left our home right away. I moved in with my parents for now and explained everything to them. We agreed that I would stay with them until my new house was ready. The next day, my phone was filled with missed calls from Jerry, and he called again. I answered, hoping this would be our last conversation. "Hello." "Hey, all your stuff is gone, you know," he said, sounding confused and impatient. Why was he so worried? He was the one who wanted the divorce. "We're getting a divorce, so it's normal that I won't be coming back. Feel free to use the empty space however you like," I told him, trying to make my point clear. There was a pause. Maybe at that moment, Jerry realized I had income he couldn't control. Then, in a surprisingly sweet tone I had never heard before, he asked, "Can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't mind living with your parents. Please." I was shocked. "I already told you it's a small one-story house," I reminded him. "It's meant as a surprise for my parents." His suggestion was ridiculous. He was trying to give away a house he didn't buy and acted like it was his to give. His disregard for the truth was puzzling. "You don't care about the savings, do you? You have no idea how much I worried about the money I gave you and what I saved for our living expenses," he continued. This conversation just confirmed my decision. Jerry's understanding of our finances and relationship was completely off. It was clear that moving forward without him was not just a choice but a necessity. As I tried to explain the effort I had put into managing our finances and making ends meet, he ignored the significance of my struggles. "That has nothing to do with what's happening here. You're just careless with money and leave all the hassle to others. And you act like you did everything yourself for your parents, right?" I confronted him, pointing out how he often took credit for my hard work. Jerry's sudden silence only added to my frustration. It was clear he was trying to take credit for everything and wanted to give the house I built for my parents to his own family, using my honesty to impress them. It was shallow and deceitful. In the end, you're just trying to take advantage of my kindness and claim my property. There's no way to justify you trampling on my feelings and intentions like this. I won't give you the house I built with all my heart for my parents just so you can show off, I said firmly, rejecting his request outright. Jerry got louder, maybe out of desperation. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll tell everyone that you built it, please. We're not a married couple anymore, are we? We're strangers now since I've already filed for divorce, I reminded him, making it clear that the boundaries had to be respected. On the day Jerry gave me the divorce papers, I submitted them to the city office right away. He had been the one pushing for the divorce, but when it became real, he seemed shocked. Yeah, you already filed it. Why are you surprised when you're the one who wanted the divorce? Oh, I didn't think you'd actually leave me. Let's start over. Let's talk it out and try to be a good couple this time, he pleaded, as if he didn't grasp the seriousness of his actions. How could he say this now? This was the same man who had wasted our savings on his mother, threatened me with divorce, and mocked me until the end. There was no chance for reconciliation. No, thank you. Please give my regards to your parents, I said cheerfully before ending the call. The next day, my phone was bombarded with voicemails and messages from Jerry, still insisting that we get back together. His persistence was confusing and unwelcome, confirming my decision to move on without him. Jerry claimed we could start over and that he loved me, but I felt he was more interested in my property and money than in our relationship. To cut ties completely, I blocked all his contact information and that of his parents. Meanwhile, the new house was finished, and my parents and I moved in. We're now living comfortably in the home I built. Later, I met with a mutual friend who also knew Jerry and shared the news of our divorce. My friend offered sympathy and updated me on what had happened with Jerry and his family. It turned out that Jerry had suddenly quit his job, saying he no longer needed to work hard because he had real estate. However, his company was left in a difficult spot because they couldn't reach him. The next day, Jerry tried to take back his resignation, but his bosses, frustrated by his sudden disappearance and the trouble it caused, gave him a stern lecture. They demanded an explanation, but Jerry, unable to admit he had been relying on my income, lied about his situation. Eventually, the truth about our divorce came out, and his lies were exposed. His company refused to rehire him, realizing he had tried to manipulate the situation. Jerry, who had previously mocked my passive income, was now in a tough spot. He moved back in with his parents, who were understandably upset, and is now struggling to find a new job due to his questionable departure from his last job. It seems he's facing the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, my life has taken a positive turn. I'm living with my parents in the house I built, working in a job I love, and enjoying life. The passive income I had saved for our future will now support those who have truly stood by me. This new chapter has brought me a sense of renewal and peace, confirming that moving on was the best decision for my well-being.